Good morning, everyone. It's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. So today we are going to play around with the March Paper Pumpkin Kit. And this kit is called, let's see, what is it called? Daisy Daydream. So this is what the kit looks like. These are all the different cards that you can create in the kit. I'm a big Daisy fan, so I really enjoyed this particular kit. So there's enough supplies in the kit to create 9 cards. So there's 3 different designs. You create 3 of each of the 3 different designs. But today I'm going to show you just some alternate ways to use the kit, just to kind of stretch the kit and make even more than 9 cards. So we're going to look at ways to cut up the envelopes. There's some beautiful envelopes in this particular kit. And we're going to look at ways to cut up the card bases that are in the kit to create additional cards. So, good morning. Good morning. So, these 2 cards here actually were created from cutting up one of the card bases. So, these are some alternates that'll take you through. And then these 2 cards here were actually created from cutting up the envelope. So, I'm going to show you what the envelopes look like, and I'll show you what the card bases look like. So first, let's look at the stamp set. There were 2 stamp sets that came in this particular kit. And so just a lot of fun little images that you can use uh, for additional card making, not just for the kit. So those were the images in the kit. And let me grab the other cards. So these are the kit cards, I guess you would call them. So these are the 3 different designs that were in the kit. And if you love daisies, I know you're going to love this kit. I think this one is my favorite design. I didn't do anything with this card. I didn't do any alternate designs. I just created all 3 the exact same way because I really like this design. But these 2 designs right here, I use the different florals. So there are large floral pieces like this, die cut pieces that came in the kit. So I created just one of the kit designs, and then I saved those daisies to create some additional cards, some alternate designs. So let's see, this is the card base that I wanted to show you. So with these kits, the card bases typically come printed on the front and the back. So what I like to do before I even put any cards together is I just cut this card base right down that score line. So I recommend cutting the card base before it's folded. If you've folded it, it's going to be difficult to cut on that score line. So just cut them apart. And when you cut apart the card bases, you'll have lots of different pieces that you can use as pattern paper to create some alternate designs. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start with this particular card base. Actually, before I show you that, I should show you the envelopes. These were the envelopes that came in the kit. So just some really beautiful designs, and you can easily cut apart these envelopes. And I used both the flap and I used this part down here to create some alternate designs. So you can easily cut these apart and make even more cards. So, or you can just use the envelopes as is. So it's completely up to you. So I want to show you what I did with these 2 cards. We're going to start with the card bases. So let me just grab this piece here. So the card base, the original design looks like this. Okay. So what I did is after I cut apart this card base, I took this piece and I just cut it in half so that I had 2 pieces that I could use for creating 2 different cards. So this first one I'll show you. Let's grab this one. Let's see, which one did I do here? Gotta grab it. So this first design looks like this. And so these pieces are actually 2 1/8 inches, and then they're 5.5 inches long. So when you cut apart the card base, those are the size pieces that you'll get when you cut it apart and then cut it in half. And so I think I grabbed the wrong one here. Let's switch this around. Is that the right one? Oh, I got it upside down. There we go. All right, so we're gonna adhere this right down the center of the card. So I'm gonna tell you what size pieces these are. I already told you this one, but I have a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock, which is 2 and 7/8 by 5.5 inches. So basically, we're just gonna adhere this part of the card base to that Mossy Meadow cardstock. So this is a very simple card design. It's a great way to use that card base. I mean, the daisies are very pretty, but there's a lot of daisies on that particular card base. So that's why I decided to break them up and use them separately. So we'll adhere this right to the card front. Oop, let's make sure we got this the correct direction. Done that before. All right. So then we are going to stamp a little greeting. So in this particular stamp set, there are a lot of different greetings that you can use. So I'm just using the little hello. And I decided to add some of my own ink. So I'm using some Mossy Meadow ink just to coordinate with the colors that I'm using in this particular design. And so we will pop that up. Oh, goodness. And I just cut a little circle shape out of some white cardstock using the Stylish Shapes dies. And then I put this right here. This is kind of, let me bring that other piece back. This is that center of the card base. So I just put that right here, just kind of off the side a little bit, just to cover that up so it looks a little normal. And then where is my bee? I lost my bee. And then in this kit, there are a bunch of die cut flowers and little bees that you can use. And so that's what I put here, just kind of popped this up on the card. So very simple design. And it's a great way to use the card base because you can actually create, when I show you this next one, you can create 2 cards from one of the card base fronts. So this is the first of 2. And then I just added a couple textured dots. So that's the basic design. Very simple and just really a nice way to showcase those little daisies that are on that paper. All right, let's look at this other design. So the other side of the paper I used in this fashion. And what did I do here? There we go. So I started with a white card base, which is just embossed with the exposed brick 3D embossing folder. You can actually use any embossing folder that you want. And for this particular card, I have the other half. Let's turn it around. I have the other half of that card base. So it's 2 1/8 by 5.5. And then I just took a scrap piece of Mossy Meadow. So this is about 1.5 inches. You probably don't need it that big, but I'm just using up a scrap piece. So we're going to add some glue here on this side. And we're going to add this to the Mossy Meadow so that I get just a little bit of that sticking out. And then we'll add this to our card base. So then this will just go off the left side. And we'll scoot this over a little bit, hopefully. All right. All right, so that's basically how I used that other piece. And then I just added some other little pieces that were in the kit. So let me grab those. Let's stamp a greeting right away before we do this. So I'm using Mossy Meadow ink. So in the kit, it came with Lost Lagoon. And since I cut apart a lot of these card bases, well, all the card bases, I decided to just kind of switch it up and use the coordinating colors instead of the blue. All right, so we are going to add this, but we need to add this little die cut piece. So what I did, and grab a piece of paper. We'll just grab this piece of paper. So what I do with these is I add some glue to a scrap piece of paper, and then let's move this over so you can see it. And then I have a sponge already that I use for gluing. And I just grab some glue and sponge it onto the back of this die cut piece. And then I can add this die cut piece on the card. We'll just pop that up like that. So that just helps you spread the glue around a little bit better, and then you don't get big glops of glue. And then we'll add our little greeting. So these little die cut shapes here that I stamped the greeting on, those came in the kit. So we'll add this right about here. And then I have a little flower from the kit, a little daisy. So we'll add this, we'll pop that up. Let's add a couple of dimensionals. We'll do that one, put one here. And then we'll just pop this up right on the bottom there. And that is the basic design for this card. And then let's add a couple of these little textured dots. All right, and so that's your second alternate design. So let me show you. I'm going to bring these back. So you can create two cards, these two cards, from cutting apart this card base. So this is the card base that came in the kit, and all I'm using is this side. So when you cut it down that score line, you'll get a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece. And then you just cut this piece in half at 2 1/8 inch, and that gives you these two pieces for these two cards. So there's 3 of those card bases in the kit. So you'll be able to create 6 additional, you'll be able to create 6 cards instead of 3 if you decide to cut all those up. All right, so that is the card base design. And now I'm going to show you what I did with these envelopes. So I cut apart these envelopes. I cut off the flap. I just put these in my paper trimmer and just cut off the flap. And then I cut off these bottom pieces here. And then I cut these bottom pieces into different sizes to put on the card. So basically you just kind of cut along the edge of the envelope to open it up. So just cut in just a little bit, just enough to cut off this edge here. And that'll allow you to open this envelope up and then use these pieces of paper to create some really pretty cards. So we're going to start with this one. And let me grab the design. So this one was created from this envelope. So I'm going to show you. Oh, whoops, wrong one. This one. It was created from this envelope. So this is the flap of the envelope. So basically what I did is I just cut the flap of the envelope off, and then I cut it down to about 1 3/4 by 5. So that is the flap of the envelope here. So you can kind of see how I cut it down. So it's 1 3/4 by 5. And then I have a little piece of early espresso cardstock, which is 2 by 4. And this piece just goes right behind here. So that's going to be our main focal point there. And so while I have that out, I'm going to stamp that little greeting on there. So let's do that first. And I have to stamp some background images, but we'll get the greeting on there. So I just put a little hello using early espresso ink down on the bottom. And then I pulled in some Daffodil Delight. So the card base is crushed curry. And then I pulled in Daffodil Delight and just did some stamping of these little honeycombs here in the background. So we just ink this up. You can use the crushed curry ink, but I was working with Daffodil Delight, so I just used that. And you just kind of stamp a little bit in the corners here. We might even add a little bit more. Let's go like that. So then we're going to bring back our little scrap paper, and we are going to add a little bit of glue here so we can add these pieces. Where'd they go? There they are. So let's get some glue on these pieces. And we'll just put them up towards the top. Put one there. And these are the little pieces from the kit, in case you're wondering where I got them. And then this one we'll just put down towards the bottom like that. Just kind of put that off to the side. Bring these back. All right, so now we're ready to add our envelope piece. So I'm just going to add some glue right down the center. And we'll put this on top. And then we'll pop this up. And we might as well just go all along here. We'll put one in the middle. Yeah, this is a great way to use these envelopes. I mean, obviously the envelopes are beautiful with the finished cards, but if you're looking to make more cards than what the kit has, then using these envelopes is a great idea because you can get a lot of cards out of one envelope. Actually, you can get 2 cards out of each envelope. So, and there's 9 envelopes in the kit. All right, so now let's add these other little die cut pieces. So these just came from the kit. So we'll just add some glue and put these on the card. We'll put one over here. And let's see. I need probably to add some dimensionals. Let's add a couple dimensionals on there. I like to cut my dimensionals. I gotta find my scissors. I gotta cut really small pieces for these daisies, for some of them. All right, let's put this on there. Hopefully I put that on the right spot. Looks like it's upside down, but that's all right. All right, we'll put that right about there. And that is basically your card. Oops. I put that on the wrong spot here. There. Okay. All right, and then we'll just add a couple of these little gems on there just to kind of finish it off. But yeah, so this is the envelope flap. Isn't that cool? I love playing around with the different supplies in this kit, in each kit, just to come up with these alternate designs. So that's basically the design. And then on the inside, I just used that same stamp image and just added some of those little images on the inside just to decorate up the inside. All right, so that is card number 3, and that was from the envelope. And then the fourth card that I want to walk you through is this one. And this was also created with one of the envelopes. So for this one, I decided to use Daffodil Delight for my card base. So it's a little darker than the crushed curry, you can see. I'm sorry, the crushed curry is a little darker. This is a little lighter. So basically what I did is I cut apart one of the envelopes and I cut it at 5.5. So this is 5.5 by 3 inches wide. So that is, let's grab the envelope. That is this part of the envelope, this lower part down here. And so like I said, I recommend cutting this envelope apart first, get as close to the edge as you can, and then create your 3-inch wide piece. And so that's what I have here. And then the early espresso piece is 3.5 inches wide. So these two pieces are just going to get adhered together. We have a nice little border around here. So let's get that in there. And we'll scoot that over a little bit. All right, and then we'll add this to the card front. This will just go right in the center. And then I have another one of those little tags or little label dies, shapes, that will stamp our greeting. So I'm just using Mossy Meadow, and we'll just stamp that little greeting on there. And then I was just using up some little scrap pieces. I like to add just a little bit of color behind the greetings. So I have a 3/4 by 1 3/4 inch piece that will just adhere right behind. I'll adhere this part right behind the greeting. So that just adds a little bit of color, especially since we're adhering this to kind of a white background. We'll add that. And then we'll just pop this up. And then I just added this kind of right in the center here, down towards the bottom. And then I took one of those daisy sprays, I guess you would call it, the die cut daisies. And we're just going to pop these up. So these came in the kit. And actually, in the kit, you would use 2 of these on one card. So I didn't do that. I saved them so that I could create these alternate designs. So we will just pop this up right about here. And then we'll add our little gems, our little dots. Do I have enough room to add these? I think. All right, and so that is card number 4. That's how easy that is. And then on the inside, I used one of the larger images from the stamp set just to stamp on the inside. And I used some scrap pieces of early espresso cardstock. So very simple design and just a fun way to use the envelopes to create additional cards, because you get 9 envelopes. So if you create, you know, if you create a card with the flap and a card with the bottom part of the envelope, you have 9 of them. So you can create 18 cards just with the envelopes. All right, so that is, those are the cards that I wanted to share with you. I have some additional designs. So let me bring these out. So these are designs on this side here that were created with the card base. So those were created with the card base. These were created with envelopes. And then let's see, what do I have here? I have this design that I put together. This is one of the card bases. So this is actually the back side of this card base. So that's a very simple design you can create with the card base. And then this is also the same paper. So it's the back side of that card base. I just cut it into little strips and added some embossed white cardstock in the center. And these green circles actually came in the kit. What did I do with the card? Here it is. So with the kit design, these are the green circles that go with this particular card. But I had some extra ones in my kit. I had 3 extra ones, so I used them to create some additional cards like that. And then here is another way to use the envelope flap. So this bottom part here is actually the flap of the envelope. You can see the curve there on the bottom. So I just cut down that flap of this envelope. So this is the flap right there. So I cut down that flap and then I added some of those daisies. I popped up some daisies on the top and created that alternate design. And let's see, what else do we got here? Oops, gotta get these out of the way. And then I created this alternate design with the bottom part of this particular envelope. So you can see this is the bottom part of the envelope. I just cut that, I forgot what size that is, 3.5. So I just cut it at 3.5 by 3.5. Just cut a little section out of here and then used it on the card. And then of course embellished it with some of the pieces from the kit. So those are the alternate designs. I don't know how many I have here. 8 of them maybe. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, I have 8 alternate designs that I created. So just some fun ways to use this kit. Of course, the kit is very beautiful, even if you decide not to create some alternate designs. But I like playing around with those alternate designs just to kind of stretch my supplies in the kit. And this kit was just right up my alley. I love the daisies. I love how these alternate designs turned out, and I really enjoyed the cards that were in the kit too. So it was kind of tough to cut them apart because I really like the kit cards. So I will get these all up on the blog for you guys later today, so that you'll have all the measurements. I'll kind of separate which ones I created with the envelopes and which ones I created with the card bases. So you'll have all the supplies, the measurements, and all you need to take your kit and create some of these alternate designs. So I hope you guys enjoyed these card ideas, and I hope you enjoy this month's kit. Like I said, it's a very beautiful kit. Um, and I think that's all I had for you guys today. I'm trying to think, was there anything else? I don't think so. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and a great week, and I will see you guys again next week. So take care, everyone.